Today I am making a rave track with the Roland S-330 digital sampler. Now this is a sampler from the 80s, the mid to late 80s, I think 87. Now as you can see, I've got a display capture running, and that is actually coming from the sampler. Now it is quite unusual for samplers to have a screen output. A lot of the Roland samplers do though, and actually it makes a lot of sense. Samplers do have quite a bit of information, and with a small LCD screen it can be hard to see what's going on. So I thought I'd give it a go. So let's show you the actual setup. I'll take the webcam by hand and show you it. So this is the black rack underneath is the Roland S-330. That's called an RC100. This black box here is a control surface for it, and it plugs into this external control input here. You can also plug a mouse into that, believe it or not, and it takes MSX mice. I'm not sure why they chose those, but they did. I've got this reverb unit. It's just a Lexicon LXP-1 from the 80s. I thought that would kind of give the authentic sound. Alesis MMT-8 sequencer, which frequently makes an appearance on my channel, and a Boss mixer. If you look at the back here, it has a proprietary display output, but on eBay I found a seller which sells a lead which converts to SCART. There it is. And then I converted the SCART to HDMI with this kind of standard HDMI converter, which you can get on eBay, Amazon, and all the other places. And then that goes into this capture device here, and then into USB, and then into the laptop. Wanted to do like a slow brooding kind of rave track, and that is like 80% finished or something. I'll go through each track one by one. So that's the first breakbeat, and here is the second. And together, layered, they sound pretty fat. So that's the beat. Then I've got this organ riff. And then on the next channel we have a bass, I think. Then we have some vocals.
E.F.E.C.T.
And then the last track has a pad in it. So those are all the samples. The drums all come from this sample CD, Skip to My Loops, the Norman Cook, aka Fatboy Slim sample CD. Really good breaks on that. The bass and the vocal sample come from 0G data file, which is kind of a new acquisition actually. Only got it at the end of last week, but this is one of the first kind of popular sample CDs that came out, especially for rave stuff. It was very popular, and it's got like loads of sounds and stuff that have been heavily used, so it's like a really good source of kind of rave sounds. The pad comes from the gwEm, which I've featured before on the channel. It's not a particularly expensive synth, but it does have a distinctive sound, and I do recommend it. It sounds instant rave as well. So altogether, I'll give you a little demo.
E.F.F.E.C.T. E.F.F.E.C.T.
So yeah, that's where we're at so far. As you can hear, it's getting towards being completed. Let me add a bit more details to it and show you some of the screens that you can get on this sampler. I can display each of the 8 voices, whatever, of the 330 in this mode. So now if I play the track, have a look at those keyboards and you'll be able to see the different notes playing. Which I think is pretty cool, being able to see it graphically. Channel A has the drums, B the organ. Well, I mean, you can see it right there. This thing does have 8 separate outputs now. Each of those outputs, unusually again, is polyphonic. Normally on these samplers the outputs are monophonic, but on this one, unusually, Roland have made the design choice to make them polyphonic, which I think is, well, I mean, it's definitely adds to quite a bit to the versatility. And I can show you how each of those sounds has been mapped. So we'll do A first, which is the drums. So that's the first part of the cut up breakbeat. That's been cut up into 3 parts. I'll change the display so that zoom in a bit on the top keyboard. So that's the first breakbeat. And that's the second one. I didn't bother cutting the second one up. So yeah, that's just me playing the drums manually by hand. Let's go on to the organ. Now that is on MIDI channel 2. The organ weirdly comes from Norman Cook's Skip to My Loops, but it does sound very rave. And it's got plenty of reverb added to it. But I mean, I love the rave feeling that sound has. And the bass is on the next MIDI channel. So that is a sound from the 0G data file. It is not that rare, but I mean, people are looking for this. You can download it for free on the internet, though. There's quite a few sites where you can download the 0G data file. So yeah, it's sort of like an FM hollow bass sound. And the vocal sample, which is on channel 4.
E.F.F.E.C.T. E.F.F.E.C.T.
I've turned the pitch tracking off on this so it always sounds at the same pitch.
E.F.F.E.C.T.
It's another one from the 0G data file.
E.F.
If you listen, there's like a horn or some kind of sound behind the vocal.
E.F.F.E.C.T.
But it's not too obvious when you're playing it in the context of the track, luckily. And finally, I have on channel 5 the pad sound. You can hear the kind of the really cool thing, as I say, about this sampler is the outputs are polyphonic if you want them to be, so I can play multiple notes at one time and it's all cool. That's the gwEm K1. And what I've done is to sample in, I think it was in my right hand I just played the minor chord, and in my left hand I played the minor chord, but with the second, I played the second inversion of that minor chord, just to kind of thicken it up a bit. And actually, I did a further trick to fatten up this pad. If you have a look in what this sound is, this is another one of the screens where you can edit aspects of the sound. There's quite a few of these. This is the pad, and it's set to mix mode, and the reason I've done that is because I'm actually able to mix two sounds together. So all I'm doing is mixing the pad from the K1 with the same pad but an octave lower. So let me turn off that, and then when I put the mix in, you can hear it an octave lower. It definitely makes it sound quite a bit fatter. There's a bunch of quite cool editing features. The loop points on this thing are absolutely fantastic. They're done graphically, which I've never seen before. So you can you see on that graphical display below on the right hand side, that's where the loop starts, so you can kind of scroll through the sample. And then on the left side, you've got where the sample ends. You can go back through there, we can see the sound starting to appear. And it's not quite like a PC sample editor, but I don't know any other sampler at the time that gave you this level of editing, really. There's other features too. This thing has an analog filter. I'll give you a little demo of that. Adjusting the cutoff. It's a really nice sounding filter as well. You can add a bit of a resonance. Maybe not that much, but just to give you a flavour. I kind of like it with a bit of resonance. It just livens it up a bit. I could also, if I wanted to, apply an envelope. Sounds really nice, or at least I personally think so. What else can I show you that this thing does? I mean, you've got, as well as having a filter envelope, you've got an amplitude envelope. Showing you the loop point screen, you can also apply LFOs if you want to. You can see how much time I've got remaining. It's actually masses of time. In bank A I've got 2.8 seconds, and in bank B I've got 2 seconds. So yeah, I mean, I'm not even scratching the surface of this thing. It's pretty powerful, and I think it has a kind of murky, gritty sound which I really like, especially with the filters. This thing is floppy disk, as a floppy disk sampler, and the operating system is on floppy disk as well. So some of the more advanced functions, you actually have to load them from disk. Now that can be quite slow. I'll show you what I mean. So I go to the utility menu. I'm switching the floppy disk to the utility floppy disk. You use two floppy disks when you're running this, your disk with samples and the basic operating system. And then for the advanced, quote unquote, advanced features, you have to put in a utility disk. So I'm going to choose the sampling option. Actually, maybe I'll choose Wave Scope just for now. And then you press that, and then it, as you see, it's changed to now loading there on the top. Yep, so this is the Wave Scope feature, and I'll just stick in a sample CD. I want to do some sampling anyway, so you can have a look at it displaying like an oscilloscope type thing for the waveform. There you can see it. The update is a bit flickery, but it does the job. Right, then we'll go into the sampling menu. This is considered an advanced feature to be loaded from the utility disk. I think the sampling should be one of the features that it has in memory at all times, but you know, what do I know? That's not what Roland's designers in the 80s thought. So there was one particular thing that I wanted to sample. Let me find a spare slot. There we go, 23. Bank A has a bit more memory spare. You can see it again there. A has 2.8 seconds, B has 2 seconds. So I'm going to go for A because I've got a bit more space on that. And there was a vocal sample that said energize on it. The sample rates are either 30 kilohertz or you can drop it to 15 kilohertz. On some sounds you can hear the difference, on other sounds you really just can't tell. The energized sample that I want is on track 29.
Electronic.
Okay, there's my energized sample. Using a CDJ to cue the sample up, it makes it a bit easier.
Energize.
I was clipping a bit.
Energize.
Okay, probably there. How long do we want to sample? Well, definitely more than no seconds. I mean, I don't know how long that energized sample lasts. I can probably have a little look here.
Energize.
Okay, it's a little bit more than a second, so I'm going to go with 2 seconds. I can truncate it later, so if I choose too much, it's not like such a big deal. Here I can set the trigger level for auto recording. I do like to use this feature. And you can actually record a little bit before when the trigger goes, so I'll pick 50 milliseconds before. So as you can see, this is straightforward, but not that straightforward. It's definitely more complicated than some samplers I own. By seeing it on the screen and all the parameters, it does make it a bit easier than, you know, something like a ACI S950 or what have you. We want to do sampling, so we go to the command menu, we do auto sampling, and now it's waiting for the trigger, as you can see. So I'll play the sample.
Energize.
Right, that's sampled. I don't know what it's doing now, processing the sample or something. So there is my sample. I'm going to chop the start and the finish, and there's a utility to do that as well. Truncate. It's loading the truncate function from disk. And you can kind of see here already, if you look on where the sample waveform is, there's a blue bar just above it with a couple of white marks, and that is your start and end point. So you can kind of roughly set that. You can see the end points moving. I'll just set it approximately. Yeah, I want to do the fine editing using the other graphical mode, but I can set it roughly with this. That's a rough truncation, but it's probably good enough. So I'll do that truncate. Right, yeah, and it has saved a bit of memory. So I've gone from 0.8 seconds of remaining time on bank A to 1.2 seconds. So I've saved 0.4 seconds. Some of the other features, so you can mix wave samples together. It has a digital filter now. I showed you the analog filter earlier, but it has a digital filter as well, actually. I'm loading it to show you. Yeah, there you go. So this is a software filter rather than an analog filter, and you can crucially do like a high pass filter. The adjustment you make with the digital filter is permanent. I mean, we can try just doing a bit of a high pass filter. I think this goes from 0 to 10. Yeah, it does. So, I don't know, let's set it to 2 and we'll compare the difference. I won't bother with any resonance. Apply that digital filter. It's just applying it now. Oh, you can see how the waveform's changed.
Energize. Energize.
I mean, that has taken quite a bit of low end out with the
Energize.
filter.
Energize.
I kind of like the sound with the filter. Let me do it a bit less though. Let's try 1. So we did 2 before.
Energize. Energize. Energize.
Yeah, it's taking out some of that unwanted low end. So I'm going to keep that adjusted version, I think. And what I'll do is to delete the other one to save a little bit of memory. There's the delete function. This is one of the ones that you have in memory at all times. That's the one to delete. We just want to delete that one tone. Let's try and get this energized sample into the rest of the track. First of all, I'm going to do a proper trim of the sample. I'll do the end point first.
Energize.
Sounds good. Let's have a look at the start point. I'm going to move it a little bit. You can see on the right hand side of that pane the waveform where the start is. That's pretty nicely trimmed. Happy with that. Let's edit the name of it and choose an output. I want this on channel 6. I mean, some may say this is all a bit of faff. For example, on my Akai S700, you don't have this. You don't name your samples, and the workflow I would say is definitely generally quicker. On the Korg sampler, the Electri BS, it's even quicker. I mean, I was able to finish a track on that thing in just like an hour and a half. This isn't one of those fast moving samplers, that is for sure. I think the extra features and the sound that it has kind of make up for it. I'm not sure whether I'll keep this sampler in the end or sell it. I'm going to assign this now to a patch, I guess. Again, this is not something you really have to do with the certain other samplers. I mean, it does make it a bit more versatile. I'll go with this patch. You need to choose the energized sample, and then what you do is select what notes that has. You can see at the bottom there's like a little map of the keyboard, and it shows you where you've assigned your samples to. It's quite nice that it's so easy to see, I must admit. On other samplers, you just get a number of start to finish. This is much more versatile and kind of easier to see. Finally, we can edit the patch associated with that, which also annoyingly has a name. Energized is on MIDI channel 6. Let's play the beat, and I'll try and figure out at what point I want it to say energized. Quite good where I've been playing it. I mean, I can record that in straight away, actually. Alright, that's recorded. Now, what I can do is quantize it, and now it should, when I just press play, it should. Brilliant. Got that energize sample loaded in. Now I'll show you something really annoying about this sampler. So the sample has been added, truncated, named, filtered, mapped to the keyboard, included in the track. which I don't know how long that took, but it must be like 15 minutes or something like that. So now what we have to do is save it, and this takes ages. Look, I'm going to initiate the save now. Let's see how long it takes. It takes over a minute. You can see it says it's saving. I'm going to drink a nice cup of tea. I do like kind of vintage things, and I think the equipment you use does affect the way you think about music and the sounds you make.
Energize. Energize. Energize.
E.F.F.E.C.T.
Yeah, the sound is awesome, isn't it, of this S330? It's somewhere between like an SP1200 and an Akai sampler. So Akai samplers, for those who don't know, they're very smooth sounding. They've got a very smooth hi-fi quality. The top end is rolled off and there's not really any aliasing. And a sampler like the SP1200 has loads of aliasing. Sometimes it can feel like it's a little bit too much aliasing, but the aliasing also gives character to the sound and it's very cool. Now this Roland sampler is somewhere in between. It's not rolled off as much as the Akai, so it is slightly dark sounding, not as much as an Akai, and it's definitely not as smooth sounding. You can hear just a little bit of aliasing, just a little bit. Just enough so it's not over filtered, but it doesn't have the crazy aliasing of like the SP1200 or something like that. And it's got those fat analog filters and all these other features. I wish it would be a bit quicker to use. It is a bit annoying with all the menus and stuff. At least you've got a screen though, and it sounds fucking rave. I'm not surprised that the Prodigy used a Roland W30 keyboard, but it's the same sample engine as in the S330, and I'm not surprised because it does sound very rave. All right, let's wrap this up. Thanks everyone for joining. Shout out to everyone who came to say hi. I hope you enjoyed hearing about this sampler and making some rave with me.